The coalition armada loomed in space, an endless tide of alien vessels shimmering with advanced technology. Over 2,000 ships aligned in flawless formation, their intent unmistakable: humanity was to be erased. On the bridge of the UHS Resolute, Admiral Jonas Albright stood resolute, his hands clasped tightly behind his back as he surveyed the overwhelming odds before him. The vastness of the coalition fleet filled the holographic display, a silent promise of annihilation. "Admiral," came the voice of his second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander Elise Morgan, "the coalition is hailing us again." Her tone was steady, but the tension beneath it was unmistakable. The crew of the Resolute knew the stakes: they were humanity's last defense, and surrender meant extinction. "Patch them through," Albright replied, his voice calm and authoritative. The holographic display shifted, revealing a towering figure of reptilian grace, Commander Varick of the Coalition, his scales glinting under the cold blue light of his bridge. His expression was one of disdain, his words dripping with condescension. "Admiral Albright," Varick began, "I commend your courage in standing before us, though it is utterly futile. Your species has resisted long enough. Lay down your arms, and perhaps some of your kind may yet live to serve." Albright held Varick's gaze, unflinching. "Humanity doesn't bow," he said evenly. "We may be outnumbered, but I assure you, we are far from outmatched." Varick's laugh echoed, a deep, guttural sound. "Your defiance is amusing, but this is the end. Prepare yourselves for annihilation." The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Albright turned to face his crew. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're outgunned, outnumbered, and underestimated. But history has shown us that humanity thrives under pressure. We've faced extinction before and emerged stronger. Today, we fight not for survival, but for the legacy of every human who has ever lived. Let them remember what it means to face us." The crew erupted in a unified "Aye, sir," as they scrambled to their stations. The Resolute shuddered as the coalition fleet began its advance. Waves of energy blasts filled the void, lighting up the darkness of space. Albright issued commands with precision, his mind calculating trajectories and vulnerabilities faster than any AI. "Deploy decoy drones. Draw their fire," he ordered. The holographic display lit up as dozens of small, unmanned crafts darted out, scattering and mimicking the signatures of human ships. The coalition responded predictably, wasting firepower on the false targets. Albright's strategy relied on exploiting the coalition's reliance on rigid, calculated tactics. "Focus fire on their flanking ships. Break their formation," he commanded. The human fleet moved as one, smaller ships darting into position while the Resolute unleashed a barrage of missiles. Explosions rippled through the coalition's outer lines. But the cost was high. The bridge shook violently as a direct hit slammed into the Resolute. "Shields down to 60%, shouted Morgan. "Stay the course," Albright replied, his voice unwavering. He had one final gambit: the EMP weapon humanity had developed in secrecy. "Prepare the pulse," he ordered. The crew worked frantically, sweat dripping as the countdown began. As the coalition ships closed in, the EMP detonated, releasing a wave of energy that spread like wildfire. The alien fleet flickered and faltered, their systems crashing in a cascade of sparks. For the first time, the coalition's invincibility was fractured. Albright allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. "Let's show them what humanity is made of." The battlefield was a tempest of chaos, coalition ships adrift as their systems failed. The EMP had done its work, disrupting the intricate AI and automated controls that the alien armada relied upon. Amid the confusion, the human fleet surged forward, exploiting the precious window of opportunity. "Target their command vessels," Albright commanded. His voice was calm, but urgency underpinned every word. "Cut off their coordination and cripple their response." The crew of the Resolute executed his orders with precision, firing controlled volleys at the largest enemy ships. Without their AI, the coalition's movements were sluggish, their formations unraveling. Human ships weaved between the massive alien vessels, striking with speed and precision. The tide of battle, impossibly, began to shift. Coalition ships attempted to recalibrate, their engineers desperately working to restore functionality. Albright watched the patterns carefully, noting how their decentralized structure began to reassert control. "They're adapting faster than expected," he said, his mind racing. "We need to press harder before they recover." On the battlefield, human ingenuity shone. A frigate, the Vanguard, sustained a critical hit, its engines sputtering. But rather than retreat, its crew jury-rigged repairs, reactivating propulsion with makeshift systems. The ship darted back into the fray, ramming a coalition destroyer and setting off a chain reaction of explosions. Every vessel, no matter how battered, fought with relentless determination. Albright turned to Morgan. "Status on their systems?" "Reports indicate their fleet is at 40% operational capacity, but they're regaining control quickly," she replied. "If we don't act now—" "I know," Albright interrupted. "Signal all ships, concentrate fire on the central flagship. Without it, their fleet will collapse." The Resolute led the charge, its cannons roaring. Human ships swarmed toward the massive flagship, a fortress of alien engineering bristling with weapons. Even disabled, it was a formidable target. The coalition, recognizing the danger, funneled their remaining functional ships into a defensive perimeter. Explosions lit up the void as the humans forced their way through, their ships taking heavy fire. The Resolute absorbed hit after hit, its shields flickering under the strain. "Shields at 30%, Morgan shouted, her voice strained. "Hold steady," Albright ordered. His eyes remained fixed on the display. The flagship was vulnerable, but time was slipping away. Suddenly, the coalition fleet began to regroup more effectively. Their systems were partially restored, and their ships moved with renewed purpose. Albright's jaw tightened. They were out of time. Then came a breakthrough. A human strike team aboard the Valor, a stealth frigate, infiltrated the coalition's outer defenses. Coordinating with the fleet, they delivered a pinpoint strike to the flagship's shield generator. The alien vessel flickered, its defenses collapsing. "Now!" Albright shouted. The human fleet unleashed everything they had, missiles and energy blasts converging on the coalition flagship. The final volley struck true, a massive explosion consuming the alien behemoth. For a moment, silence reigned. The coalition fleet faltered, their remaining ships scattering in confusion. Humanity had struck a blow not just to their forces, but to their confidence. Yet the battle was far from over. The destruction of the coalition flagship had sent shockwaves through their ranks, but the battle was far from won. As the human fleet regrouped, sensors flared with an ominous reading. The coalition had activated their superweapon, a colossal energy cannon housed within a dreadnought larger than anything the humans had encountered before. Its first shot vaporized an entire human cruiser in a blinding instant. "Admiral, the weapon is charging for another strike," Morgan reported, her voice tight with urgency. "If it fires again, we won't have a fleet left." Albright's mind raced, analyzing options. Conventional tactics wouldn't work against this weapon. It was shielded, heavily guarded, and designed to obliterate any threat before it could approach. "We need a two-pronged assault," he said finally, his tone decisive. "We'll draw its fire with the Resolute while a strike team infiltrates the dreadnought to disable the weapon from within." Morgan hesitated, understanding the stakes. "That will leave the Resolute exposed, sir." "I know," Albright replied. "But it's the only way. Signal the fleet. All remaining ships are to cover the strike team's approach." The Resolute surged forward, becoming a beacon for the dreadnought's targeting systems. The alien weapon adjusted, its massive barrel swiveling toward humanity's flagship. On board, the strike team, comprised of humanity's finest soldiers and engineers, prepared for their mission. Their task was clear: infiltrate the dreadnought, reach the energy core, and destroy it before the weapon could fire again. The human fleet launched a coordinated assault, their ships darting around the dreadnought, engaging its escorts, and drawing fire away from the strike team. Albright remained calm on the bridge, issuing orders with precision. The Resolute absorbed hit after hit, its shields buckling under the relentless assault. Inside the dreadnought, the strike team encountered fierce resistance. Alien warriors, desperate to protect their superweapon, fought with ruthless determination. The humans pushed forward, their adaptability and resourcefulness proving crucial. An engineer bypassed a security door by hotwiring its controls, while soldiers provided cover, taking down enemies with precision shots. As they neared the energy core, the heat and radiation became unbearable. The team's leader, Captain Ramirez, relayed updates to the fleet. "We're at the core. Setting charges now." On the Resolute, Albright watched the countdown. The dreadnought's weapon was nearly charged, its barrel glowing ominously. "Captain, we need those charges detonated, now," he urged over the comms. "Almost there," Ramirez replied, his voice strained. "We've got heavy resistance." Sacrifices were made. One soldier stayed behind to hold off advancing enemies, buying precious seconds for the others to complete their mission. The charges were finally armed. "Detonation in 10 seconds, Ramirez announced. The Resolute braced as the dreadnought's weapon began to fire. But before it could unleash its destructive energy, the core erupted in a blinding explosion. The dreadnought was consumed from within, fragments scattering across the void. Cheers erupted on the bridge, but Albright remained somber. The cost had been immense, and the battle wasn't over yet. He steeled himself for the final push, determined to see humanity through. The battle was over, and silence blanketed the void where chaos had raged. Debris from the coalition fleet drifted aimlessly, a graveyard of once mighty vessels. The human fleet, battered and diminished, limped through the wreckage. On the bridge of the Resolute, the surviving crew processed what had just transpired. Relief mingled with exhaustion, and the weight of their losses settled heavily over them. Admiral Albright stood at the center of it all, his gaze fixed on the tactical display that now showed nothing but wreckage. "Casualty reports?" he asked quietly. Morgan's voice wavered as she replied. 32 of our 40 ships destroyed. Crew losses estimated at 70%. She paused, struggling to continue. "We're the last of the fleet, sir." The words hung in the air. Humanity had achieved the impossible, but at an unimaginable cost. Albright closed his eyes for a brief moment, then straightened. "Prepare a transmission," he said. "To all surviving forces, and to Earth." The comms officer nodded, and moments later, Albright's voice echoed across what remained of the fleet and to humanity's homeworld. "This is Admiral Jonas Albright of the UHS Resolute. The Coalition Armada has been defeated. Humanity stands victorious." A wave of cheers and cries of relief resonated across the ships, but Albright's tone remained steady, almost somber. "We fought for our survival, but we also fought for our legacy. Let the stars remember the price we paid today. To those we lost, we owe everything. And to those who survived, we carry their memory forward." He ended the transmission and turned back to his crew. "Now, we honor them." The crew gathered in silence as Albright began to speak again, this time with a slow, deliberate cadence. He started naming each of the coalition ships destroyed in the battle, his voice carrying a weight of both triumph and respect. One by one, he recited their designations, his memory sharp despite the overwhelming number. The crew watched in silence, their admiration for their commander growing with every word. This was more than a list, it was a ritual, a recognition of the lives and effort that had brought them to this moment. Even the enemy deserved to be remembered, for their defeat had forged humanity's survival. As the list went on, the enormity of the victory and the losses settled into the hearts of everyone present. Albright's voice never faltered, even as his own emotions threatened to surface. Each name was a reminder of what they had faced and what they had overcome. When the last name was spoken, Albright paused, letting the silence speak for itself. He turned to the bridge's viewport, where the shattered remnants of the battlefield floated among the stars. "For all of us," he murmured, his voice almost inaudible. The crew stood in quiet reflection, their thoughts drifting to those they had lost and to the future they had fought to protect. The Resolute turned toward Earth, leading the battered fleet home, carrying with it the legacy of a victory that would echo through the ages.